flight to the finish.
Princess Twilight!
T-Rex!
You have something that belongs to me!
Twilight's Kingdom.
I suggest we meet once a moon. In fact, my first royal decree as ruler of Equestria is to establish this Council of Friendship.
The Last Problem. What do these episodes have in common? They've each made our respective best lists for the entirety of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Hello everyone, and welcome to our very last episode of At the Screening. I'm Thespio, and before we begin, I may as well address the elephants in the room. We are very much aware that this video is long overdue by about several years. We released our previous list of the worst of Gen 4 back in July of 2020, and our best list faced consistent delays due to several factors outside of our control, including the uncertainty of the pandemic. We eventually finished writing around November of 2021, just before Voice released his solo review of the Gen 5 movie and his 10 Simple Fixes video. Unfortunately, around that time, Voice said he was starting to feel burnt out with MLP content, outside of a few exceptions like TF2 analysis, and sadly he couldn't bring himself to put this all together. He does wish to give MLP a proper send-off in some way, just not like this. That being said, Voice of Reason has granted me permission to take the reins for this video and finally finish what we started. He's also entrusted me to read his top personal choices for each category on his behalf. However, even though Voice won't be participating, that doesn't mean I'm doing this whole video solo. I still plan to carry out our original plan by having one final guest help me with this list, special guest Commander Firebrand, right on cue.
Mental note, adjust party howitzer 2 degrees west.
Wait, hang on. You arrived here via your own military-grade collab partner ejector?
I wanted to test how far I could fire someone without disrupting their internal organs.
And you didn't think of using any of your incompetent guards as guinea pigs while simultaneously passing up the simple yet creative solution to your base's intrusion problems by literally firing them? Why?
No volunteers. For some reason.
Well, anyway, glad you could be here to talk about the best of MLP Gen 4, Firebrand.
Gen 4? Who cares about Gen 4? Gen 5 is I'm sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight face. Sure, I'll play.
Noted. Anyway, let's begin with our first category, Needs More Hype, aka episodes that are good, but unfortunately don't get a lot of love among fans. We'll start off with Voice's pick, Rainbow Road Trip. Quote, "Yep, I'm picking the 1-hour special that used the same animation style and software from the 2017 movie. It doesn't have a scheming villain nor a grand battle to stop said villain. What it does have is simplicity. Take away all those bells and whistles, and you're left with great characters. This special, as I said when we reviewed it, reminds us of how great the main 6 are at solving friendship problems, even when the stakes are low. This would have been perfect as a final cutie map episode, and I think everyone should take a second look at it." End quote. As for me, interestingly enough, my first choice was originally going to be Griffin the Brush-Off. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I would choose it solely because it had an underrated moral. Knowing when to disassociate yourself with toxic individuals and discover who your true friends are. Plus, the execution of getting to that moral was just hella awkward. So, I've decided to go with an episode that, as far as I know, was mostly passed over as filler. But nowadays, I believe it deserves more respect and admiration than we gave it credit for. Like I did with Granny Smith in Family Appreciation Day. In the beginning, I'll admit I didn't really care much for Granny, as it seemed like she was just going to be a target for stereotypical old people jokes. But after seeing her tell the tale of how her and the Apple family ancestry were the founders of Ponyville, one of the main central locations in the whole show, it gave us a lot more to recognize and celebrate with the elderly. Granny Smith may be a kooky old lady, but she showed that there's a method to the madness for making Zap Apple jam, and that there's a lot of gold underneath that saggy skin of hers that deserves to be recognized, just like Apple Bloom rediscovered. Aside from that, it also deserves credit for offering a subversion to the wealthy business owner stereotype in Filthy Rich. It was really nice to see a more down-to-earth and approachable rich dad character to offset the entitled brat in his daughter, Diamond Tiara. And it was great seeing that at the end, he knows when to put his hoof down and be firm with her if he catches her getting out of line. Operative words, catching her. Sure, the episode does have one or two moments of cringe, such as the CMC doing the whole work the sleeping person like a puppet trick. But thankfully it's kept to a minimum and it didn't really bother me. Is Family Appreciation Day one of the great MLP masterpieces? No. But now that a lot of time has passed after it originally aired in Season 2, I believe it deserves a lot more of our appreciation. How about you, Firebrand? What episode do you think needs more hype?
I've said this before, but I think the most underrated episode is A Dog and Pony Show. Sure, many purists love to look back on Season 1 and 2 as the best and prime of the show. And when they look back, what episodes do they talk about? Return to Harmony, Sonic Rainboom, Lesson 0, Party of 1. A lot of the flashy, bigger stakes episodes are crap-saccharine stories. And A Dog and Pony Show is usually left out of that lineup, even by the show itself. The Golem-like Diamond Dogs were one and done, and Rarity's gem-finding abilities fell to the wayside. Which is surprising to me because this episode was really freaking good. Tons of great physical comedy, Spike being adorably cringe, Rarity being hilariously over the top, and yeah, great message for girls about how you don't have to be the strongest or most skilled in order to get out of a bad situation. You can think your way around problems and that doesn't make you a lesser person. But nope, all that matters is rainbow explosions, insane ponies, and John Delancey as himself, and yeah, it's easy to see why it got overlooked.
Well, let's be fair here. Around Season 1, Rarity wasn't too much of an instant fan favorite yet. But thankfully, that's changed over time to where the current general consensus is her being one of the best characters on the show. Best pony for life!
Yeah, boy!
Ha-ha! All right, on to our next category, guilty pleasures. As much as we like to be critical of episodes that have serious flaws, sometimes an episode can be so ludicrous and so not meant to be taken seriously, you can't help but have a great time.
Now, I know this may not have been a popular opinion back in the day, but I still really like Starlight Glimmer. I know, heresy, right? But I do. Sure, she wasn't handled perfectly, but there's plenty of that to go around in this show, let's be honest. I find many of Starlight's struggles to be very relatable, and I love her complexity for a kid's show character. But yeah, let's be real. Starlight is a character that is really hard to write well, and there are many episodes that show it, like All Bottled Up, which is a wonderful mess of an episode.
You are joking, right? You legitimately enjoy those 22 minutes of misery?
She's bottling up her anger. She's literally bottling up her anger. Get it?
Yes, I get it, and it's a great analogy. It's the blue line-crossing bitch that Starlight keeps forgiving for no reason that's the problem!
Oh, right, Trixie. She's... Okay, we get it. Even your friends can sometimes irritate the living daylights out of you. And Trixie seems like a person who is very prone to being that friend. So yeah, thematically, she fits, and it's not out of place that she'd be annoying as all get out in this episode. However, you know the line.
Intentionally annoying is still annoying.
There's also a weird B-plot where the main six are doing an escape room for some reason. They also break into a song after almost completing it, and then there's the montage of all this terrible stuff going down in Ponyville, and holy crap, it's so jumbled and disorganized that I can't help but laugh at how absurdly this episode was put together.
Yeah, you may laugh at it, but I'd argue it only adds more evidence to how much of an irredeemable tool Trixie is, and that Starlight isn't much better for constantly enabling her. Where you find pleasure, me and Voice only see pain. Anywho, for my guilty pleasure, I've said multiple times in the past that whenever Fluttershy, well, isn't Fluttershy, consider my gut busted. And nowhere else is that more on display than what I think is her funniest episode, Fake It Till You Make It. With Fluttershy going all the way with these shop pony characters and saying some of the craziest not Fluttershy quips, or even some of the most embarrassingly dated phrases like squad and woke, I can't stop laughing. When Rainbow Dash asks if she's putting on a one-pony show, I believe it. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if RD and Fluttershy try to put on their own impressionist tour. Now, does it raise more questions concerning if Fluttershy truly is knowledgeable in fashion from Suited for Success and is possibly putting on a facade that she isn't? Yes. Does it carry an unfortunate implication that she might have multiple personality disorder? A bit of a stretch, but maybe. Can her shop pony dialogue be cringy? Different strokes, different folks. But to me, I choose to see it as one of her mannerisms that's carried over from putting your hoof down. Fluttershy being introduced to a new way of not being a pushover and unconsciously getting carried away. Plus, I think it's one of Andrea Libman's best Fluttershy performances ever. Angel Shy from She Talks to Angel is a close second. Flutter Hulk from Power Ponies and Thestral Shy from Bats and Scaremaster are still cool, and of course I'll always chuckle at Flutter Guy and Bridal Gossip and Philly Vanilli. But I'm sorry, the Shy Shop trio takes the crown for me. Yes, it's filler, but it's fun filler. As for Voice's guilty pleasure, he says, quote, I was going back and forth between two entries. One had Twilight go boom, the other had Twilight go ham. One had Pinky shake a tail feather, the other had Pinky go dunce. Both had Twilight learning a lesson in regards to her friendship with the Cotton Candy Mare, and both ended weirdly in different ways. I guess it comes down to which episode made me laugh the hardest, and the answer is A Trivial Pursuit. The comedy hit harder, ironically without the use of slapstick. Twilight shouting out, "Sleeping!" always gets me chuckling, and some of the smaller bits like Starlight's implied mental breakdown at the word trivia, or the bizarre Trivia Trot rules got me rolling out of my chair. It's by no means a good episode, and Twilight was absolutely terrible in it. But it made me laugh so hard, I have to make it my biggest guilty pleasure. Sorry, Feeling Pinky Keen. End quote.
Alrighty then, let's see here. I'm the only one who likes this? Ooh, contrarianism, my favorite! It's gonna get spicy, cause guess what we're starting with? Mysterious Ne'er-Do-Well! Huh. Usually an angry mob comes at this point.
Well, it's been a long time since the hatred for Ne'er-Do-Well was still fresh. I think we're well past that point, given there's much bigger fish to fry. And funny enough, I've actually grown to agree with you on it.
Wow, you're no fun. What does it take to get canceled nowadays?
Trust me, Seth MacFarlane has been asking himself that for years.
Touché. Anyways, the initial backlash to Mysterious Ne'er-Do-Well really astounded me. Okay, were the actions of Rainbow's friends deceptive and underhanded? Yes. But when you really think about it, Rainbow's personality didn't leave them with many other options. But I hear you say, why didn't her friends just talk to her? Are you familiar with the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink?
Oh, look at that. He said a horse thing because we're horses. It's funny. Ha!
I think a lot of the backlash comes from people who just haven't dealt with a person like Rainbow. Someone who, no matter how many times you tell them not to do something, they are so stubborn and so action-focused that it seems like only abject humiliation gets through their thick skull. You can tell someone like that the right thing to do right to their face, but it goes in one ear, not the other. Honestly, if the message of stop being bad actually changed people's minds, we would have had world peace ages ago. Besides, all RD's friends did was help people. They never sabotaged Rainbow or put her in danger. Rainbow always embarrassed or endangered herself. They saved people, bowed out, and just left. Do you see the trick? If Rainbow wasn't out for herself, people talking about Ne'er-Do-Well's actions wouldn't bother her. Throughout the whole thing, her friends remained innocent as doves, even though they were as sly as serpents. But yeah, especially for Rainbow Dash fans, it was tough to see the lovable, awesome Daredevil put through the ringer. It wasn't pleasant to see the stubborn, selfish, prideful, and frankly, ugly side of Rainbow Dash, especially if it happens to remind you of yourself. But especially in a slice of life show, you can't hide the parts you're ashamed of forever. Eventually they come out. Also, it was all a reference to Night of the Batwoman, and she looked like Pony Darkwing Duck. Come on!
Yeah, I can understand why a lot of RD fans were really turned off by Mare Duel, but sooner or later, they needed to accept that the kind of bullheaded character she is has to be taken down a peg in order for them to actually learn anything. Moving on to Voice's pick, quote, I can guarantee I am quite possibly the only one in the fandom that unironically enjoys Princess Spike. Author's note. That's how you incite an angry mob. Huh.
Am I just losing my touch at pissing people off? Why do I feel bad about that?
Anyway, continuing the quote. Yes, I know that Princess Spike isn't well liked. It's consistently at the bottom of Season 5 favorites, or at the top of worst Spike episodes. And I can see where some of those complaints are coming from. However, one thing that I can thoroughly appreciate is Spike's initiative. I'm aware that a pair of earplugs would have solved the problem instantly, but what people tend to forget is Spike still has a job to do. He is the convention's liaison. It's his job to handle any concerns and conflicts when the princesses are too busy. So seeing him not only settle disputes between ponies, but also take action on other tasks, including gemstone arrangement, has me glued to my seat. It's this stuff that reminds us why Spike is Twilight's #1 assistant. Even with all of the foreshadowed Murphy's Law moments, I cannot for the life of me bring myself to hate it. It's Spike wanting to feel appreciated despite a small role that has it among my favorite Spike-centric episodes. End quote. I mean, I guess, but that still doesn't really excuse the pointlessness of Dragon Sneeze trees or that construction pony being completely in the right about the damaged water pipe. Just saying. Anyway, I didn't have to think too hard about this category because I have 2 picks. Yeah, I know it's cheating, but I truly do believe that both of these deserve to be looked at with more nuance. First up, no doubt about it, Newbie Dash. Me and Firebrand already covered this in a little more detail a long time ago on his channel, so I'll try to keep it brief. In a lot of her episodes, such as Mysterious Mare Duel and Testing 1, 2, 3, it's very self-evident that Rainbow Dash is not a conventional learner, and it's always been in her nature to be a bragger and a show-off. Do you honestly expect her character to instantly change after she finally achieves her dream of becoming a Wonderbolt? Of course not. Like she always tends to do, she flies too close to the sun yet again and had to be brought down from her hubris high. Because the Wonderbolts were always about teamwork and unity, never about standing out. This may be a tough pill to swallow, but I know what I'm talking about when I say the following. Entitled egomaniacs not kept in check are some of the most insufferable individuals you will ever be around. And ego has absolutely no place in a team. Also, keep in mind, when Rainbow was finally accepted into the Wonderbolts, as contrived as it may be, Spitfire told her she had to learn and master their flight routine in only 2 days, i.e., not given any time to gloat or even celebrate. With that kind of time crunch, she needed to relearn where to put her priorities and focus on doing her job rather than trying to stand out so much that you end up bringing the whole unit down with you. Sure, it might have been nice for the Wonderbolts to take notice that their teasing was affecting Rainbow's performance and actually tell her that they mean it as a term of endearment or indoctrination rather than detriment. But again, Rainbow has a very particular learning curve, and more importantly, like us in the audience watching, how one reacts is ultimately a choice. Runner-up, no contest, Honest Apple. After it aired, I was fascinated by all the backlash it got. While I can understand the complaints it got, and I will acknowledge that lines were crossed, it overall still stuck the landing with its main goal, showing that there's a right way to be honest and a wrong way to be honest. Almost like it was a spiritual successor to Leap of Faith. And again, how you show honesty is ultimately a choice. Here, Applejack simply lets her biggest vice, which is pride, unconsciously overtake her empathy without her realizing it until after the fact. Nothing much else to say that Firebrand hasn't already said in his taking too seriously on it, so go watch that. His points pretty much reflect mine. And I swear I'm not kissing your flank, Brand. I blame serendipity.
Message received, oddly delivered as it was.
Huh, what a coincidence. That's the name of our next category. Pretty straightforward, but these picks are basically what we believe are the episodes with the best message. Now, I won't lie, this was probably the most difficult to choose for because, let's face it, MLP is an Aesop-driven show. There's a lot of great messages they tackled, no matter how sloppily or gracefully they did it. And there are even some episodes that tackled a message that's more of a gray area, where both sides of their respective issues can technically be right. It just depends on the circumstances. Some examples being Honest Apple, Spice Up Your Life, and Top Bolt. But if I had to choose just one, then I'd have to go with Sounds of Silence. It's a scientific fact that our brains process emotions faster than logic. While it is important to feel your feelings, it's even more important what you do with them. And I believe this lesson was tackled a lot better here than in All Bottled Up. The visual allegories attached to the Kieran were a terrific example of knowing when and how to keep your emotions in check, or else it can turn into a literal flame war. In fact, the overall lesson is pretty much explained perfectly in the song. You can't give up your laughter because you're scared of a little pain. The fear of hurt is still what ruled them. Sometimes you gotta let it rain. A Kieran Tale is one of those rare times where a song is both a big exposition dump and a self-contained story without relying on outside context. To me, Sounds of Silence has a prime example of a message standing the test of time, and actually has a lot more relevance today. Though I will say this, before Autumn Blaze finds the cure, given how little he spoke until later seasons, the Kieran village probably would have been a utopia for Big Macintosh.
Here's a question. How do I not feel more sorry for the character of a trio with dead parents? Well, make another member of that trio an allegory for disability and give her family members who didn't give enough of a crap about her to be present in her life and show her unconditional love. Yeah, come on, stay on track. Anyways, it was often a topic of conversation in the fandom about Scootaloo ever learning to fly. Like getting a cutie mark, it was apparently a sign of maturity. And with Flight to the Finish, it revealed that Scootaloo was a late bloomer. Right? She'll fly eventually. Right? Nah. This episode doesn't give the feel-good happy ending, for it's the dreaded adjective for kids shows. Ambiguous. For real though, it was very surprising that this episode took such a serious angle, showing the looming shadow of anguish that people with disabilities, handicaps, or other unfortunate circumstances have to deal with. Sometimes, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you can't do it. You can't do everything and anything. And you know what? That's okay. This episode is literally the Picard quote.
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
And even with that sobering, kinda depressing message, it still ends on a hopeful note. Yeah, you maybe won't be able to do what everyone else can do, but fulfillment can come from other places. Don't tie your happiness to things that might be impossible to get. Focus on the things that really matter. It may not be the happiness you wanted, but maybe it's the happiness you needed.
Speaking of the Cutie Mark Crusaders, for Voice's best message pick, quote, how about we talk about an episode that should have aired 2 seasons prior instead of in the final season? Growing Up is Hard to Do is also an underrated episode, if not for the bizarre setup. No one can take the girls to the Appaloosa County Fair, despite going off on their own countless times before, so a wishing flower makes them appear older. Shenanigans happen involving the Tasmanian Devil Dog, and the girls learn 2 very important lessons about growing up. The appearance of maturity doesn't replace the act of maturity, and maturity takes time. Apologies for retreading from the review, but after transforming, the girls make the mistake of their appearance of age means I get to do whatever I want. It's not. Maturity is about gaining life experiences and then applying said experiences to everyday situations. It's about developing an adult brain to match that adult body. This is an excellent lesson to teach children as they grow into their teens and beyond. Heck, imagine starting to watch the show when you're 9 years old, trying to figure out your purpose in life and what you want to be when you grow up, and then 9 years later, the show teaches you that growing up as your physical body grows takes time. While the story timing in-universe might have been off, the chronological timing was dead on for teaching this very important moral. End quote. All right, 2 more to go, so let's go out with a bang and talk about the best closing 2-parters that really got into the spectacle of it all.
Now, the tricky part about each of the finales is that part 1 and part 2 usually have disparate quality between them. I Can't Chill Out Waiting part 1 is a very different beast from part 2, let's be honest here, folks. So if we're looking at them as a whole, where the quality of them both are around the same separately, and the overall quality is good, then I'm gonna have to go with Shadowplay. Because, for the most part, it felt like it was going back to a little bit of the high fantasy adventure stuff from the show's first 2 episodes. It had build-up from the previous episode's lore, especially in regards to Sarswirl the Bearded finally getting an appearance. It felt like a reward for paying attention. It felt like a reward for caring. The main 6 felt more like active contributors in the story. They weren't just there. I also like the clever touch of not only showing each element of harmony being exercised at a critical moment, like in episode 2, but also exercised in a way that coincided with the Pillar of Virtue's element. That was some writing skill. Yes, there were times when characters made some dumb decisions, but the episode itself calls out those dumb decisions. It had some feelsy moments, especially with Twilight and addressing the conflict between Starlight and Starswirl. There were also some pretty big stakes at the end of this. The elements were in danger. The world was in danger. Heck, I believe that even Starlight and Twilight's friendship was in danger. It really got me excited to see what the Pillars would do after this. Didn't get much of it, unfortunately.
Well, if I may interject just a little bit. As someone who regularly interacts with people who work in the industry, a common consensus amongst show staff is that they usually treat the last episode of any season as if it was the very last episode, period. Unless they have a multi-seasonal contract, not a lot of shows will know if they'll get renewed until either after they've already finished production or after the ratings come in. It's always a gamble. So I believe it's the finale's job to not only get the audience to want more, but to also try and wrap up as many loose ends as possible in the off chance that they're given the axe. And I can't think of a better example of going out with multiple bangs than Twilight's Kingdom. Throughout Season 4, Twilight's new role as a princess was a very common point of discussion, bringing with it a plethora of questions since Magical Mystery Cure. One of the biggest ones being, why? Why her? I mean, I have my own practical answers, such as because Twilight's the only princess that actively responds to a crisis. I have much more investment in her struggles because the other 3 princesses are, for all intents and purposes, secondary or tertiary characters that aren't given a fair amount of screen time to truly develop, and they've done nothing but delegate to Twilight in preparation for retirement. Either way, they cleverly kept Twilight's purpose for her title under wraps and have it all come together here. It also wraps up the overarching storyline of the main 6's respective elements being challenged, thus forcing them to make difficult decisions in order to fully embrace them, And they even reevaluate their rocky friendship with Discord. And I don't think I need to say too much else about why Tyrek was an amazing villain. 'Cause, let's be real, his silver tongue and the battle scene between him and Twilight speak for themselves. So aside from its shortcomings and toy sale eyesores, my only other real complaint is that after Celestia tells Tyrek's backstory, we never got to see Scorpan afterwards or get much of an answer as to why he didn't just stay in Equestria if he liked being there so much. But those are small beans to what I think is a great finale to possibly the best season in the show. And even if it wasn't picked up for 5 more seasons afterwards, if this was how Friendship is Magic officially ended, I'd walk away pretty satisfied. On to Voice's pick, quote, "This one was a no-brainer. I had to pick one that was consistently high stakes from start to finish. Heck, you could even say the stakes were high from the beginning of that season, and all of that buildup accumulates here. Yes, I'm referring to the ending of the end. I love how tightly written and focused this season was. The plot points in each of the arc episodes wove right into each other. The birth of the Legion of Doom, the Royal Sisters stepping down to make way for Twilight, and Discord's role in helping Twilight's confidence for the eventual ascension. Then the two-parter starts by revealing Grogar was actually Discord, and everyone was all, "What?" Now, I'm aware that a good chunk of people downright hated that moment, and still won't shut up about it. But I had no problem with it, as it was clearly foreshadowed, and he's still in character if you take past episodes into consideration. Outside of that, the rest of Part 1 was downright epic. The Legion's individual attacks on Canterlot and Ponyville were fun spectacles to watch, even when the battles were utter curb stomps like Tyrek versus the Pillars. Then Part 2 came around. Twilight's natural fears of screwing up again, the showdown of the main 6 plus Spike versus the Legion of Doom, the Student 6 uniting all of the races to aid the main 6, and finally, the takedown of Cozy Glow, Tyrek, and Chrysalis, solidifying them in a permanent prison. Oh, I almost forgot about all the movie references, the cheesy one-liners, getting donuts signifying an end of an era for cartoons of the 2010s. Yeah, I love this two-parter so much, I want to watch it again so badly. End quote. I'm sure it would be more enthusiastic sounding if he was actually here, but, you know, what can you do? Anyway, I guess there's no better time than now for our final category, favorite episode.
Wait, favorite? Not best. You know those are two very different beasts, right?
Well, let's be fair. When it comes to entertainment, a lot of the time the lines between subjective and objective are so blurred that, well, it's almost impossible to agree on what's quote-unquote the best. You know, no two people's minds are exactly alike, blah, blah, blah.
Fair point. Well, if we're going with our favorite, for me, Pinkie Pride. It was funny. The music was good. Pinkie felt like she was going up against a force of personality on her level. The slapstick was great. Even the message warning about unselfishness accidentally becoming selfishness because of pride is a good one. And look, I'm a sucker for Weird Al, okay? Yes, I don't have fantastically insightful points about this episode, but I don't think I need to. It's simple. It's fun. I enjoyed myself so much watching it. What more do you need?
No argument here. As for me, there are several different categories I could put certain episodes in, depending on my mood or what I feel like experiencing while watching. For example, if I just need a laugh or an excuse to lay back and turn my brain off for a bit, I'd put on episodes like Rarity Investigates, The Saddle Row Review, Simple Ways, Make New Friends But Keep Discord, It Isn't the Main Thing About You, Sparkle 7, or Between Dark and Dawn. If I want a good old dose of feels, my selections would include The Main Attraction, Tanks for the Memories, Brotherhood Social, and The Perfect Pair. If I want to watch episodes with some of the most mature themes, then I'd go with Hurricane Fluttershy, Gauntlet of Fire, or Flutterbrudder. But if I had to pick an absolute favorite overall, then I'd have to go with an episode that I believe encapsulates all three moods in a perfect balance and more: Sisterhood Social. What can honestly be said about it that hasn't been said already? It's well-paced, the conflict is relatable, the animation is stellar, it's hilariously quotable and meme-faceable, and of course, the chemistry between Rarity and Sweetie Belle is just amazing. It's also worthy of note that nothing about it feels forced or shoehorned in for the sake of moving things along. Sweetie Belle doesn't instantly forgive Rarity when she tries to apologize for driving her away. Thus, Rarity has to show Sweetie Belle how much she values her by taking part in the social, even if it meant spending most of it completely covered in mud. This was the episode that cemented Sweetie Belle as my favorite Crusader and Rarity as my favorite pony, period. When I watch it, everything about it just feels genuine and not the least bit condescending. And it even spawned an adorably worthwhile follow-up with Forever Philly, even if the roles are somewhat reversed. In the end, I can't think of any other choice than Sisterhood Social as one of the best and most memorable episodes of Friendship is Magic ever. And finally, Voice's favorite. Quote, "You know, if you would have asked me what my favorite episode was around, say, 2016, I would have said Stranger Than Fanfiction. It wasn't just the meta humor, Patton Oswalt, and the atmosphere, but more specifically, it was my favorite because it made me proud to be a fan of something. Then everything changed when the nonsensical retcons attacked. I had to think, what episode made me proud to be a fan now? Well, I got that answer when the words "many moons later" appeared on the TV screen around 9 p.m. Eastern Time on October 12th, 2019. The Last Problem is the perfect bookend to the series, with a now deified Twilight helping her student discuss an important friendship problem. Why choose friendship when friendships eventually fade? I said it once in the review, and I'll say it again here. Not if you put in the effort to keep those bonds strong. While the flashback plot of Twilight's ascension to the throne had its moments of heartbreak and hilarity, it's seeing the older main six return to the castle that melts my heart. And then, the song The Magic of Friendship plays out the series. Seeing all of the characters we've come to cherish grow up along with the mural of every character the main six helped grow, I cry every time the MLP theme sneaks in and the book closes. The Last Problem is my favorite episode of the whole show." End quote.
All in all, we have a lot to owe to this show. It gave us good friends, good times, and helped a lot of us grow as people. Just imagine what our lives would be like if this never happened. Never.
Couldn't have said it better myself. While there were some obstacles to overcome, Friendship is Magic is a show I didn't know I would love, nor did I think I would need. Nothing much else to say that I haven't said already during mine and Voice's review of The Last Problem, other than, well, thank you, My Little Pony, for everything. Now, as we begin to wrap things up, I'd like to first extend our thanks to Commander Firebrand for being our guest for this list, as well as all of the other guests that we featured here throughout this final season, including Firebrand's wife, Aramel, Jasper Pie, and Finn the Pony. Next, I'd like to personally thank Voice of Reason himself for inviting me to be a part of this little shindig, and for his blessings to finally get this video done. Albeit late, but better late than never. It was a fun ride, and I appreciate the opportunity. And finally, we leave you with one final statement Voice had originally written for this video's conclusion.
At the Screening was a send-up to At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert. In doing so, we close out My Little Pony Generation 4 with this question. What do we know for sure? Well, here's what I do know. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic may not have been the best cartoon of the 2010s, but it was one of the most important. It, along with Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012, broke the mold as to what animation can do. It could be weird. It could be meta. It could tell a story in the background. But more importantly, it could reach all demographics. Gender, age, sexual orientation, you name it. Friendship is Magic was a forerunner for other soon-to-be hit shows like Bluey, The Loud House, Amphibia, The Owl House, We Bare Bears, and DuckTales 2017. While some of us were hesitant towards Generation 5, and despite its less than stellar reception and eventual cancellation, I was at least one of those people ready to accept it with open arms. Because this series taught me to love, tolerate, and make new friends. From all of us at the screening, the balcony is now closed.